You ever looked at everybody else's relationship and was like, you know what, their relationship is really healthy and thriving. And for some reason, when you look at yourself, you're like, why can't I keep a relationship like that? Like either you end up, when you get close to somebody, you end up running away or pulling back. Or whenever you get close to somebody, you end up chasing them so much that it seems like the relationship slips in your hands and then it's gone. Or you feel like it's constantly a hot and cold dynamic where one moment I feel like this is comforting, the next moment I am terrified and I am afraid and I'm running from the relationship. If that's you, this is a video for you. We're going to talk attachment styles, secure and insecure attachments. Let me start by saying this first. Your attachment style is not a personality trait. It is learned behavior. So a lot of times when you go into a relationship, you start having these survival responses, you start operating in certain schemas. I'm gonna break that down a little bit later. And you have certain behaviors that seem like this is the way that I cope with love. This is the way that I cope in my friendships. This is how I cope in romantic relationships. This is how I cope in work relationships as well. And also to add to that point, a lot of times your attachment style shows up and it shows exactly how you see yourself. So hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be able to identify what your attachment style is and how to gain more security within your own life. A lot of times when I work with couples or if I work with individuals and we're working on helping them become their best secure self, we go through their attachment styles. That means that we have to start looking into their familial background. We have to start looking to see what type of caregivers they had, what was the emotional climate at home, also the journey of their relationships as well. How was your friendships? Did you keep those friendships? Did you have any friendship breakups? Was there any type of weird dynamic in your friendship? How was your romantic partnerships? How were you two with each other? How did you respond? How did this person respond to your needs? All of those things matter. Accessibility, responsiveness, engagement, being attuned to someone's needs, all of that matters. I want y'all to look at your earliest relationships, your caregivers, your parents. Your earliest attachments are typically going to be your parents, unless you were not raised by your parents, either or. But if you look at the relationship that you have with your caregivers, that's pretty much going to give you an idea of what your attachment style is. How was the emotional climate in the home? How was the security? How was the stability? Were you able to express yourself within the home? Were you minimized to simply being a child? Did you have to mature too fast? Did you have to make adult decisions too fast? Did you feel like there was a lack of stability? Did you feel like my parents were always gone and I had to pretty much raise myself? Did you feel like your parents made you feel defective? When you tried to open up, when you tried to do certain things, you were always criticized. Was it a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming? Was it any type of abuse? Did you have any narcissistic parents? Was it any type of sexual abuse? All of that plays a major part. Many people actually do not come from a secure household. A lot of people don't. It's unfortunate, but most people are not taught how to parent. Most people are winging it. A lot of people have gone through their own type of trauma and they end up bringing that subconsciously into the relationship with their children. And then sometimes it can be what it is that you witness in home as well. If you are a securely attached person, more than likely, when maybe your partner or somebody like that or your friends have things going on in their life, it doesn't feel like a threat to you. It doesn't feel like a shot to your work. It doesn't cause you much distress. You trust the space. You're comfortable with closeness, but you also value your independence as well. You handle conflict well without feeling the need to explode or the need to withdraw. You're more regulated. You're more mindful of your responses. You're secure in people having their own lives outside of you, and you don't need people for your own identity. And most times you choose healthy partners, but that's not all the time. So let me just go ahead and highlight that, because some people who are secure end up getting into relationships with very unhealthy, toxic people. We're going to talk about that too. If you're an anxious person, you probably have a fear of abandonment. You probably came from a household where parents had to work a lot. Maybe you were abandoned. Maybe your parents left. Maybe your parents threatened to leave. Maybe you had an unstable home to where it was constant threats. Or maybe could have been you witnessing it as well. Maybe you saw a parent or your parents or a parent and their boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, whoever, and you saw a lot of conflict. You saw a lot of one person running and then coming back. So you saw the nature of that. In our earliest experiences in our childhood, we learn what love is. So sometimes you can learn that love is unpredictable. You can learn that love and anxiety go hand in hand. Sometimes you can tell yourself love hurts. Sometimes you can look and say love takes too much vulnerability and I'm scared. But for anxious people, that's usually the dynamic. Like I said, Your attachment does not necessarily have to come from your childhood. It can come from a really unhealthy relationship that you have. If you are an anxious partner, one thing that causes you distress is conflict. And whenever you're in conflict, you may tell yourself, they're going to leave me. And so you end up building up and showing these adjustment behaviors. If I'm afraid they're going to leave me, I'm going to chase them. I'm going to pursue them. I'm going to do whatever I can to keep them. If that means that I have to change myself, or I can manipulate as well. I can be the person who cries and I say, I'm going to hurt myself if you leave me. I'm nothing without you. It can sound like that. Anxious people do not like the feelings of abandonment. They don't even like to think that their partner will possibly abandon them, because a lot of times their relationships are tied to their worth. So they feel like they are less valuable unless they have a relationship or somebody who is giving them attention. Now, if you have a partner who is constantly threatening to leave, or you have a partner who's constantly criticizing you, maybe you have a partner who plays off a lot and then makes it seem like it's your fault, and you internalize that. It could be a number of things. Maybe you have a person who's emotionally unavailable. Maybe you have a person who doesn't respond to your needs. And so instead of you saying, hey, you know good for me, and pushing away, you become performative. You go the extra mile to prove that you are valuable in that relationship. Another thing you'll notice if you have an anxious attachment style is you'll obsess about what somebody thinks about you. Pause that for a minute. I'm going to say that again. You'll obsess about what someone thinks about you or how they feel about you. What if they feel like I'm not enough? What if they feel like I'm not valuable? What if they feel like I'm not pretty enough? What if they feel like I'm too big? What if they feel like I'm too small? And you'll change so much about you because your identity is rooted in them. So when someone's not pleased with you, or maybe they just decide to leave, you get distressed, because the very part of your identity is dependent on if they're going to be around, if they're going to keep you in their life. If they take too long to text you back or call you, you go into a panic. You get anxious. And then you start catastrophizing, and you start overanalyzing and overthinking. Well, they have to be doing this. What if it's this? And you go to the worst and worst possible scenario, or the worst possible outcome, or you just assume that everything's going back. They must be getting tired of me. And so before this person can even text back, if you're not watching those three dots the whole time, trying to see if they're gonna text me back, and then you feel like you're in an emotional crisis and you get distressed and you're like, oh my God, I'm about to lose my mind. And before they can even text you back, you texting another text. And before that thought can even gather, you texting another text. And here you are, you have about 5 or 6 text messages that are coming through now because you couldn't wait, because that felt like a threat to your security. You felt like something was going to happen. As a result of that fear of abandonment, you get clingy. You get clingy, or you get possessive. You start watching everything that they're doing, trying to be everywhere with them. Now you want their location. And it's not location because you are worried about their safety, so don't even try that live with me. It's location so that way you can monitor what they're doing. You want to control who they hang out with, what they're going to do, who they talk to, all of that. So if anything feels like now it triggers a fear of abandonment, you can correct it. You can twist it, you can fix it, you can manipulate in some way. You struggle with self-worth, so then you end up tying how people treat you to your worth. So let's just say that a person is going through their own thing, and let's just say that they get distant and they have to figure some stuff out. So now they're not being around you as much, they're not as affectionate and stuff like that, and you start internalizing that. You internalize and you personalize that. It had to have been something about me. I have to do something more. You start looking at yourself as though something is wrong with you when it could just be something that they're going through. You may end up testing your partner's love as well. You may end up starting to create conflict. Now you creating fights to see if they actually still care about you. Now you creating arguments, you creating fights, and that's the only way you can see if they care. You're looking to see if they're going to chase you. You're looking to see if they're going to chase after you, if they're going to cry, if they're going to become performative. And not everybody's going to do that. Sometimes that very thing may run somebody away. Because why can't you just talk? Why can't we just have a conversation? And then also sometimes people can look and say, why is everything about you? And that can become burdensome. That can become a burden to a lot of people. Somebody who is constantly saying, well, if you love me, you'll do this. Do you still love me? All the time, eventually you're going to start questioning yourself. Well, Am I not enough for you? Another thing you may end up doing is ignoring them to see if they'll chase after you. Who's guilty of that? Uh-huh. You may end up bringing up a breakup as well. If I left, what would you do? If I left, how would you be? Another thing, I actually wrote this in my Safe to Love book. So if y'all haven't caught my Safe to Love book, go ahead and get it. It's on Amazon. But another thing is that you'll end up over apologizing to keep people there. That's a form of people pleasing and codependency. We'll make a video about that on another day. But you'll end up doing those same things just to prevent them from leaving. Here's the thing. If you are an anxious, preoccupied person, sometimes you feel as though you can keep control of certain situations, and that is your downfall. You cannot control the outcome. That's why people pleasers do what they do, to control the outcome. You can't control the outcome. If a person is wanting to leave you, baby, they're going to leave you. If they really want to be done, there's nothing you can do about it. And you have to accept that. It's not very easy to be with an anxious person because it seems as though, for one, anxious people can be manipulative, but it seems as though you always have to assure them. You're always having to prove to them that you're going to stay there, that you're going to be around. Okay. If you are a person who feels like whenever people get close, whenever I feel like I have to show any vulnerability, whenever I feel like I have to be close on an emotional level, or now we starting to talk about emotional things, we starting to talk about the future and what we're going to be like, and you like, you may be an avoidant person. If even emotional vulnerability within yourself is uncomfortable, like you don't like to express your emotions, when emotions come up, you numb them or you shut them down. And when people talk about your emotions, you're like, ugh, you feel uncomfortable, you may be an avoidant. A lot of times in that household, it's because you came from a parent who didn't allow you to express yourself emotionally. Or maybe you had so much going on in the house that you just isolated and kind of was in your own bubble. Maybe you were discouraged from talking about your emotions. Maybe you were criticized or made to feel like the black sheep. Maybe your parents ended up talking so harshly to you and minimizing you that you feel like, I can't bring up my own issues. I'm not going to bring up any issues because I don't want to be minimized. I don't want to be dismissed. Or if you look and you like, okay, my parents have a lot of stuff going on and I can't bring up my concerns because they already have a lot on them. They already have a large load. You may form some avoidant tendencies. That last one can show anxiety as well, but most times it's avoidant. If you felt like your emotions did not exist, they did not matter, or if you were made to feel like you were defective, you may struggle with avoidance. Even with conflict, you may not do that as well, which also the anxious, preoccupied person may avoid conflict to maintain a sense of harmony. You may avoid conflict because you don't necessarily have the skill set to navigate the conflict. And even addressing conflict means we have to talk on deeper levels and we have to talk about our feelings. So when someone gets too close, you may feel suffocated. That's the reason why a lot of times you find reasons or you find ways to create some type of distance between you and your partner. You may value independence and success over emotional connection. So a lot of times, if I ever ask a person, what is emotional intimacy? If they can't tell me, a lot of times it's like the radar is like, yeah, this possibly may be an avoidant person. And then when I ask you, okay, is intimacy, relationship, love more important than success? Or is success more important than that? If a person tells me, yes, success, like I have a fear of failure, a lot of times I know this may potentially be an avoidant. Things start to feel too good, you pull back because you like, nah, when things get too good, I know something bad is going to happen. So I'll just end it to protect myself. And even if that means that now you have to shut down a relationship where you actually like that person, all for the sake of protecting yourself, you may end up doing that, which is what a lot of people do. So if you're that person, don't feel bad. A lot of this is a universal experience. Another thing you may do is downplay your emotions. One thing that I see avoidants do is they judge their emotions. Man, I shouldn't be crying about something like that. Nah, I ain't finna do that. Nah, they ain't gonna see me like that. Or you may tell yourself, my emotions are not important. This don't matter. Like, it's not that serious. You may call yourself sensitive. You may end up labeling yourself and saying hurtful things to yourself because of that. Sometimes you dismiss your own emotions. So you're not just dismissing other people's emotions. So think about it. Maybe you got a partner who is expressive, and whenever they try to express a concern to you, or, just talk about their feelings, you like, you're kind of like, you probably either end up dissociating, disengaging from the conversation, trying to change the conversation, bringing in some type of humor to downplay and minimize the importance and the severity of the conversation or the concern, you self-sabotage because you already have a fear. Even sometimes the fear of actually it's the fear of vulnerability and the fear of failure. So sometimes it can be because you don't want the relationship to fail. You sabotage it so that way a person won't leave you, but you can leave them so it doesn't feel like you failed. And then also that fear of vulnerability. That's also another reason why you see a lot of avoidant people. They'll usually try to leave first. They also do this game of ghosting. That's what you see a lot of avoidant people do. They will ghost you. I have any people who be ghosting? Y'all in the chat? If you are, go ahead and let yourself be known. You be hurting people. Cut it out. We're not gonna keep on doing that. Not in 2025. We want healthy, thriving relationships. The thing that I see a lot is the flirting with other people. It creates distance. If I put my time and my focus onto somebody else, it takes away the focus that I have on this person who is getting extremely close. So now I can put my energy into this relationship or my energy into this dating experience and take away some of my energy here. So now I don't have to be as vulnerable here. Now I'm creating space. Now this person doesn't want to talk much, or maybe this person starts chasing. And now when they do that, I can start to say, you chasing me too much. You suffocated me. And that gives me a reason to end it with you. Or now I can have a justifiable reason, even though it's not. I can justify my reason for ghosting you. You were doing too much. You were trying to get too close, or I can justify your reason for becoming distant, even though you just saw me flirting with somebody else, or maybe you saw me liking somebody's half-naked pictures or something like that. You witnessed it and you got upset about it. Now I can say you too clingy. You tripping because I have an excuse. Hello, my avoidance. Focusing on the flaws. They breathe too loud. They chew too loud. They walk too fast. They talk too serious. All of these will be a reason why you detach. So now you can justify your reason for detachment. You focus, you hyper focus, not even focus, but you hyper focus. It's like that person can be in front of you. Y'all can be on a date and you be like, I don't like the way your eye lean a little bit over there. And you can justify your reason for detaching, or they can be talking to you and they can be eating. You can be like, I don't like the fact that you talk with your mouth full. Yeah. And all of these can be reasons as to why you detach. Okay. Instead of looking like, all right, this is a small flaw. This is not something, but you start hyper focusing on flaws. Like every time they do it now, you're like, uh-huh. Even if you really like them, it's almost like a safety thing. Like I can play it safe. Now I can detach. If you're not an avoidant, have you ever dealt with an avoidant? Like, how did it make you feel? Being with an avoidant person is literally like if I was talking to my daughter and she just looked at me and didn't say nothing. Hello, I'm hurting. I'm upset. I'm mad. You didn't call me back. Do y'all see this? Do y'all see that like that? That nonchalant, I don't care about your feelings. It's like you're talking to a brick wall and it's like, then when it bounces back on you, you're like, it's hurting right now. Like this is not helping. I don't feel like my feelings matter. I don't feel like you care about my needs. I don't feel like I matter as a person. So if I am an anxious person with an avoidant person and you are just stuck like a brick wall, yeah, I'm about to try to find every which way. I'm about to get performative. I'm about to engage in some type of adjusting behavior. Now I'm about to try to buy you gifts and stuff. Now I'm going to start asking you a number of questions. Now I'm going to start trying to figure you out on another level. Now I maybe even threaten to do something to myself just to get your attention. Now I'm going to start asking you questions. Do you still love me? Hey, do you want to do this? And I'm showering you with gifts. I'm buying, I'm taking you on dates and stuff. I'm buying you things. I'm now abandoning myself for the sake of you. Almost in a sense like I'm putting you on a pedestal. Do you see how that goes? And then here you are, you want a partner. You want that intimacy. You desire that relationship, but you sabotage it because you're so afraid of vulnerability. You're so afraid of failing that. So then you end up being lonely. That's why a lot of times they say that avoidant people either come off as self-centered. They may say that they're a-holes, aloof, and sometimes they're called narcissists as well. They're not necessarily narcissists. Let me not say that. Maybe have narcissistic traits, but you can't diagnose somebody with NPD just because they have avoidant tendencies. But a lot of times you'll see people say that. Another attachment style that you'll end up seeing is a fearful avoidant or disorganized attachment. What you'll see in this is that it's usually like a hot and cold dynamic. usually like some push-pull dynamic. Like you crave the closeness, but you're afraid of the closeness as well. So what you'll see is there's two, it's an interplay right here. So you have the anxious attachment and you have the avoidant attachment here. When you have an anxious preoccupied attachment, they have high anxiety, low avoidance. When you see an avoidant attachment, they have high avoidance, low anxiety. When you see a fearful avoidant or you see a disorganized, they have both high anxiety and high avoidance. So what you see is that fear of abandonment, but also that fear of intimacy as well. What you'll see is that like a fearful avoidant attachment kind of anticipates abandonment. They anticipate rejection. They expect betrayal. They expect rejection. They expect pain. So it's like never really choose satisfaction. But what you'll see in their upbringing is a lack of stability. Maybe a lot of times you'll see some type of severe trauma, like you'll see some type of abuse. You may see like a narcissistic parent. You may see a parent who is kind of like impulsive. You may see a parent who one moment they're hot, the next moment they're cold. Like one moment they're showing you love and affection, and the next moment they're, I hate you so much, you stupid, da 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 da. Or then one moment they're like, I love you, I'm always gonna secure you, I'm always gonna protect you. And the next moment, get the F out of my house, I'll kill y'all. Do it. It's just, you may see chaos. And I mean things that are unwarranted. So if you have a parent where you feel like I was only good enough if I can be their trophy, if I can do great things, that's the only time I was good enough. They showed me off to their friends and stuff like that. But other than that, it was nothing else. Yeah. Maybe you had parents who, sold you to people. I hate to talk about stuff like that yet, but I'm just saying, like, it could be stuff like that. There's testing behaviors that people with a fearful avoidant or disorganized attachment have as well. When things get too good, they pull away as well. Like I said, you're going to see a combination of attachments. You also pick a fight. And then after you pick that fight, you'll panic whenever they're truly about to actually leave you. You may also sabotage those healthy relationships because you're like, it feels boring. It's not enough chaos. It's not enough of that hot and hot and cold becomes so normal to you that it's almost like it's necessary for you to survive that relationship. So you sabotage a healthy relationship. And then that ends up pushing that person into a spiral. And they're like, I can't satisfy you. Like one moment we're good, we're cool, we're straight, and just unwarranted, you trip out on me. Then you start testing me, you creating fights and stuff. And the next moment we good. So what I'm supposed to do? It's really hard, especially when you've told yourself that a relationship is a source of both comfort and fear. So a lot of times we end up mirroring the earliest attachments that we have. So if we've seen certain things, we end up becoming that sometimes. And so you may end up finding yourself in this constant cycle and you're like, I can't get out of this cycle. It seems like it's never ending. Like I truly want to love you. I truly want to be with you, but I don't know how to sustain a healthy relationship because I tell myself, my minds, right? A lot of times you end up exacerbating and putting yourself, exacerbating your own abandonment fears. You end up exacerbating your own abandonment wounds. A lot of times it's not even that person, it's the thoughts that you have. It's what you've told yourself because you've overgeneralized that person because of things that you've experienced in the past. And like I said, your attachment does not necessarily have to come from your parents. You can be a secure person. Your home could have been extremely secure. And then you get with an unhealthy person. Maybe they put up a facade. Maybe they put up a facade. Or maybe you were like, okay, well, I see that they're growing and I really like them. I'm interested in their personality. And then you start to see that lack of availability, that lack of attunement, that lack of responsiveness, that lack of engagement, that lack of accessibility. You start to see that. Or maybe you start dealing with a person who's tactful, like they have certain tactics. You start to look and you're like, is it me? Did I do something? And if a person influences so much doubt, if a person alters your perception or tries to alter your perception, or if a person just downright lies, or if a person continues to dismiss your feelings and continues not to care, eventually you may start having an insecure attachment. Eventually you may start becoming more distressed whenever they don't call or they don't respond to your text. Eventually you may start becoming more anxious. You also can start becoming more avoidant to protect yourself. You may start getting into this position of an insecure attachment, and you may start leaning into them to fill your voids up as well. So it doesn't necessarily mean they came from your home. So I want you to really take a look now. Look at your relationships, look at the past, look at your previous relationship, look at yourself, look at your behaviors, look at your characteristics and see what fear is rooted in your behavior. Am I afraid of abandonment? Am I afraid of rejection? You look at your behaviors and say, what are my behaviors rooted in? What causes me distress? What causes me to become anxious? What causes me to become avoidant? What causes me to cling on and chase after and pursue? What causes me to withdraw and create emotional distance? Identify that. If you see any of these characteristics, take some time and look. If you're struggling with that, Get online, take you a test to see exactly what your attachment style is. Look at your familiar background, look at your romantic background, and identify exactly what patterns you have. The purpose is not necessarily to just find a secure relationship, it's to become secure within yourself as well. So when things go sour, haywire, anything like that, you don't lose your identity. When you break up, you don't feel like it's the end of the world and it doesn't put you into an emotional crisis. However, you look and you identify and you start using your logical reason, you start being able to step back and truly reflect and say, it's okay. I realize that both of us had some issues, or I realize that it simply just was not compatibility there. If you can identify those things, you'll have a better relationship and you'll have more security within yourself. So I bring you all back on the next video. I hope you all enjoyed this conversation. Don't forget, like the video, share it with somebody. Share it with your auntie, your grandma. I don't care who it is. Your cousins, your work boss. I don't care what it is. And make sure and make sure you subscribe to the channel. I wish you all the best. Happy healing and happy healthy relationships. Bye, babies.